Hi guys, how you doing? It's Abba. Today we're reading about Curious George the monkey. Curious George goes to the hospital. That's the cover of the book. This is for Eliyahu and Leah Channa and Yudah Tzvi. Okay, and whoever else wants to listen. Of course, if Yisroel wants to listen, it's fine. If the girls want to listen, if Rafi wants to listen, it's fine too. This is George. He lived with his friend, the man with the yellow hat. He was a good little monkey, but he was always curious. Today, George was curious about the big box on the man's desk. Uh-oh, look at that. See George looking at the box on the man's desk? It says jigsaw puzzle. It's a puzzle. But George doesn't know what it is because he's a monkey. What could be in it? George could not resist. He simply had to open it. It was full of funny little pieces of all sorts and shapes and all sorts of colors. George took one out. It looked like a piece of candy. See, there's George opening up the box. Right there. And then he's looking at the piece of the puzzle, and it looks like it's a piece of candy. Uh-oh. If he thinks it's candy, what's he going to do with it? Maybe it was candy. Maybe he could eat it. George put the piece in his mouth, and before he knew it, he had swallowed it. See, there he's putting it in his mouth. Uh-oh, and then he swallowed it. Ew, it doesn't taste so good, does it? A while later, the man with the yellow hat came home. "Why, George," she said, "I see you have already opened the box with the jigsaw puzzle. It was supposed to be a surprise for you. Well, let's go to work on it." See, here's the man with the yellow hat. They're looking at the puzzle. Finally, the puzzle was finished. Well, almost finished. One piece was missing. I wonder where that piece went, huh? He can't figure out why is that one piece missing. The man looked for it everywhere, but he could not find it. "That's strange," he said. "It's a brand new puzzle." "Well, it cannot be helped. Maybe we'll find it in the morning. Let's go to bed now, George." See, they were searching for it everywhere. The next morning, George did not feel well. He had a tummy ache and did not want to eat his breakfast. The man was worried. He went to the telephone and called Dr. Baker. "I'll be over as soon as I can," said the doctor. George doesn't feel good. Oh my goodness, I wonder what's in his tummy. It's probably that piece from the puzzle, huh? Ooh, George doesn't feel good. Look, oh, he's sad. Oh, his tummy hurts. Oh. And the man with the yellow hat is kind of worried. Oh my goodness, what's wrong with George? First, Dr. Baker looked down George's throat and felt his tummy. Then he took out his stethoscope and listened. "I'm not sure what's wrong," he said. "You better take George to the hospital and have an x-ray taken. I'll call them and let them know you are coming." See, there's the doctor examining George. "Don't worry, George," says the man when they were driving to the hospital. "You have been here before when you broke your leg. Remember how nice the doctors and nurses were?" George held his big rubber ball tight as they walked up the hospital steps. A nurse took them down a long hallway to a room where she gave George something to drink that looked white and tasted sweet. "It is called barium," the nurse explained. "It helps the doctors find out what is wrong with you, George." In the next room stood a big table, and a doctor was putting on a heavy apron. Then he gave the man one just like it. George was curious. Would he get one too? No, he did not. "You get on that table, George," the doctor said. "I'm going to take some x-ray pictures of you." He pushed a button and there was a funny noise. "There, you may get up and we will have the x-rays developed right away." Here's the nurse giving George a drink, special drink. And here's the doctor taking the x-ray on the x-ray table, see? They're taking the x-ray of George. Now let's see. There is something there that should not be there, said the doctor when they're looking at the x-rays. Why, that looks like, I think that must be the piece that was missing in our jigsaw puzzle yesterday, said the man. Well, 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 said the doctor. At least we know now what is wrong with our patient. I'll tell Dr. Baker right away. George will have to stay at the hospital for a few days. They'll put a tube down his throat to get the piece out. It's only a small operation. I'll call a nurse and have her take you to the admitting office. So here they are looking at the x-ray. Look, there it is. It's the piece of the puzzle George swallowed. Many people were waiting outside the office. George had to wait too. Look, Betsy, the woman said, there is Curious George. Betsy looked up for a moment, but did not even smile. Betsy had never been to a hospital before. She was scared. See the little girl who's real scared there? Right next to Curious George? That's Betsy. Finally, it was George's turn. A young nurse took him to the next room. My, how many rooms and how many nurses there were. One nurse wrote down a lot of things about George, his name and his address and what was wrong with him. Another nurse put a bracelet around his wrist. It has your name on it, George, she said, so that everybody knows who you are. See, there's George getting ready to get taken into the hospital. See, the nurse is putting the bracelet on him. And then there's George's bracelet right there. It says Curious George. Then the young nurse came back. My name is Carol, she said. I'm going to take you to your room now. We call it the children's ward, and we put you to bed. There will be lots of children to keep you company. Here they are going to the hospital room. And so it was. There were a lot of children in the room. Some were up and around. Others were in their beds with a doctor or nurse looking after them. Dave was having a blood transfusion. Steve had his leg bandaged and was sitting in a cart. Betsy was in bed looking very sad. George got the bed next to Betsy. See, here's all the kids. See, there's George coming into the hospital room. There's George, and there's the nurse. And there's Betsy in the bed, and she's so sad. See, Betsy, she's sad. She doesn't like to be in the hospital. And there's the boy. There's other kids in the hospital. There's the kid in like a little wheelchair, sort of. George was glad when he was in his bed at last. His tummy was hurting him again. The man sat with him for a while. Now I have to leave you, George. I'll be back first thing in the morning before they take you to the operating room. Nurse Carol will tuck you in when it's time to sleep. Then he left. George just sat there and cried. Oh, George was sad because the man with the yellow hat went away. See, he's waving goodbye. Waving goodbye. George is waving goodbye. See? And then he was crying. Oh, he was crying. As he had promised, the man was back early the next morning. The nurses were keeping George very busy. Okay, guys, this is George the next morning in the hospital. I'm going to have to stop soon because it's 10 minutes. And tomorrow we'll record some more. We'll see what happens to Curious George in the hospital. Okay, I love you guys. Mwah, mwah. Eliyahu, Yehuda Tzvi, everyone else who's watching, I love you. Bye-bye.